Great. Jerry, are you back? Can you unmute? Okay, well, Bert, how about you?
Hi, everybody. Well, I'm a Unitarian. And
That explains.
you're all mentioning Tarian things. So I will throw that in there. I do not appreciate the cruelty factor where eating animal products is concerned. And several months ago, I stopped eating them. And I'm always looking for better sources of protein. Something different in the bean area. I've explored lentils. I enjoy lentils, but when I have protein cravings, I do eat cheese, and I'm glad to know that there is vegan cheese out there. So I'm going to look for some of that. And I also drink these protein drinks. And I haven't read the label carefully because I like them. I almost don't want to know what's in there. But they have 30 grams of protein per little, something about this size.
Wow.
And they're delicious. The taste is wonderful. They're very filling. And they seem to be good for my body. They give me energy. And so I rely on those a lot. I have a plant-based cookbook, and I'm lazy in my old age. I look at the cookbook and I look through. I have actually noted a couple of recipes and put markers in there. And one of these days I'm going to try them. No promises.
That's good. You're getting there. You're getting there. It's okay, Bert.
I don't do anything in a hurry.
Right. Thank you. Now, Musette, you said your microphone's not working, but if you want to put anything in chat about where you are, I'm happy to read it for everybody. And then in the meantime, Jerry, are you with us here?
Yes, I am finally. I had trouble with my computer, so I got my phone.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been a vegan for 10, 15 years and just kind of drifted that direction, but mainly for health reasons. And I don't eat dairy, I don't eat meat, and I'm real happy with it. So it's easy to do. But when it comes to desserts, I try to follow a don't ask, don't tell policy. I fall off the wagon.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, and while we're waiting for Musette's, I have been vegetarian since not this past July, but a year ago. And it was a result of my participating in a social justice committee meeting one day, and something just clicked in me. And from that meeting on, I just never ate meat again. And on my way to being vegan, I think. So I'm enjoying the journey, and you know, it has been a little bumpy, but I'm enjoying it for the most part. So there you have it. So it looks like Musette. Are you writing, Musette? You are. Okay. Okay. While she's writing, oh, here we go. She says, I'm in Colorado and loving the weather change. There are leaves on my back deck and front porch. I'm a weekendtarian. That's a new one for me. Weekendtarian. Okay. Well, thank you. Okay. So now I think if we're all set, Reverend Wooden, would you like to tell us about your journey and, you know, about your being a vegetarian?
Well, sure. Can you all hear me well enough at the moment?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm using a church laptop that's not always up to snuff. So if I vanish, wait, I'll get back on.
Okay, great.
I'm not really at ease with labels because I think they are overly defining. So I'll tell a story instead. Just about, well, for over 20 years now, for a variety of reasons, my supplemental spiritual practice has been as a secular, shall we say, a non-Jewish participant in a Jewish community in my home in Grand Rapids and before that in Brooklyn. That's a whole other story. but I found it very satisfying. And one of the things that you learn is that there are dietary laws that attend that community. And when you're with them, you observe them. And of course, they famously don't eat pork, which, by the way, is also true of Muslims, although for entirely different reasons. They are non-pork eating people. I just want you to start there because I have, in the interfaith community, I have friends who are Jewish, friends who are Muslim. And so when I'd spend time with them and we'd eat, there wouldn't be any pork. And I got used to the idea that it was not necessary. And I read something, 15 or more years ago, maybe a little less, when some zoologists or scientists discern that pigs are as smart as dogs. And I thought, I wouldn't eat a dog. I like dogs. So why would I eat a pig and not a dog? And I came to the realization that the animals we or I eat, the ones we choose to eat, is perfectly arbitrary. It has nothing to do with them being meat animals. They're just animals we choose to eat. And I began to think, well, if a pig is as smart as a dog, I probably shouldn't eat a pig. And since I have Jewish and Muslim friends, maybe they're on the right track. So pork went away and I never missed it. I shouldn't say I never missed it. Every now and then, go past a barbecue place, catch the aroma, it's still appealing. But do I break down? Nah, not that big.
Good for you.
But it's not that attractive. So I left pork to one side. But I began thinking otherwise and thinking, well, if I can do without one meat, where do I come off eating any of them? And I came to the conclusion, the only reason I ate them, and reasons were, A, it was easy, because we have a society that makes meat eating easy. And second, I liked it. And I thought for a moment and said, are those sufficiently moral reasons for taking animal lives? If I lived out in the bush, if I had a spear, if my family depended upon it, I can see that. And I lived in small towns in Massachusetts where people hunted and put that meat, the deer, in their freezers for their families. And I could respect that. So I came to the conclusion that if I'm not willing to kill it, and I don't need to eat it, for what reason can I justify consuming it except that it's tasty? And I'm not sure that's enough of a reason to eat something, especially something that Buddhists would call a sentient creature. So I came to the conclusion that I didn't have to be carnivorous. That was a choice. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't important. I couldn't justify it. And so we became non-carnivores. To say vegetarian is not quite active because most people who don't eat meat do eat animal products. And yes, I have a weakness for ice cream and it's not going away.
We forgive you.
But we began to buy free-range eggs. We don't eat that many eggs. And we bought organic milk so that we knew that the sources were less destructive to the environment and to the animal than before, because I can afford it. The cruelty of our current economy is that the food that is best for you to eat actually costs far more to purchase than the food that's bad for you and bad for animals. We have constructed an economy that's based on the consumption of cheap animal products. So it's wrong that I can afford to eat this way, but I can, and so I do. I wish it were easier for others to make that choice, but at the moment, it's not. So we drifted slowly into a non-carnivorous lifestyle, and one that's only occasionally ovo and lacto. Now, having said that, this is not a religion. I don't commit a sin when I step on it, like Jerry admitted, sometimes when the sweet is in front of me, I don't look at the ingredients because you're not going to go to food jail if you eat this. And further, I discovered after I went to give blood once that my iron was low. And I asked my physician, and he said, well, you could take supplementary iron, or you could eat a little meat now and then. And I said, okay. So from time to time, not regularly, not even once a month, not even once a week, once or twice a month, I will cheat. I will enjoy it. And then I won't miss it again forever. And that's the great thing for you that are trying to give up meat. You won't miss it. You really won't. It's really a matter of creating a diet that's really interesting. And my wife and I have a huge assortment of recipes that are easy to make, extremely pleasant to eat, and very satisfying. And what's more, they're pretty cheap. For example, anyone here ever tried soy sausage?
Yes. Good
It's
stuff.
indistinguishable in your mouth from the real thing, because guess what? Real sausage was not designed to taste like meat because it was made of the part you didn't want to eat. So the part you're tasting is the texture and the spices. We make soy sausage stews and stuff, and people say, I thought you don't eat meat. I said, we don't, and neither are you. And they discover that sometimes what they like is the texture and the seasoning, not the flesh itself. We eat a fair amount of soy products in the form of soy milk, which we have usually with our coffee, which is better than real milk, by the way. And we do consume some cheese from time to time. But it's really a matter of choosing not to and not doing without what we don't want, because we discover what we want are good tasting foods that are generally non-animal based. People say I couldn't be vegan. I said, do you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at any time in your life? He said, yeah. But I said, that's a vegan meal. Relax. It's not about doing without, it's about doing with. There's a lot of stuff that you already eat that is not about an animal product. And it's a picture that tells us we have to put an animal at the center and surround with other stuff. No, we put vegetable matter at the center and surround it with other things that enhance it. And it really is just adapting your perspective on food. Our health is at least measurably better in the sense that every time we get blood, our cholesterol and triglycerides are all in a good location, but it really just suits us. So find the diet that suits you, that doesn't harm the planet more than you really have to, and be okay with that. No one's gonna wave their finger at you. I'm certainly not gonna put you in food jail. And experiment, enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, try something else. But I don't mean try a whole different diet, try a different ingredient. And if you want advice, I'll be glad to give it to you. That's as much as I've got to offer there, Denise, other than recipes and I can do that another time.
I think it would be great to have a couple of your recipes if you're willing to share. A couple of your favorites. Terrific.
Oh, we do a lot of one-pot meals because they're easy.
Yeah.
It's only the two of us, and cooking for one is a chore. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And I do give in to some stuff that, not meat stuff, but some prepared things. I mean, Costco is a godsend. God bless America. And they have some packaged Indian meals with lentils, some with chickpeas, some with potatoes. Just great. A little high in sodium, so if you had a blood pressure thing, measure it out. But it's when you eat it, you don't have to worry about anything else. And I do make my own bread from time to time, which is fun. And I like doing that.
Have you ever, I'm sure the group might have questions, but just to maybe get this started.
Okay.
Have you ever run into any resistance? Family members, or when you get together on holidays? Like, one of the things that we discussed at one point that I always find really interesting is how people replace their traditional meals at holidays, right? All of a sudden they become vegetarian, and all of a sudden that turkey on Thanksgiving is like, it's a problem, So it's about, and then others of us have had traditions just based on, oh, this is mom and this is what she does on Sunday, and all of a sudden mom can't make this anymore because it's made with meat, and oh, what happens to that tradition? So you haven't run into anything like that?
Well, we've done some adaptations. One, if you eat turkey once or twice a year, you're not in food jail. Okay? It's when you eat it every week that you're taking part in the system. There is a Buddhist practice that if you are in a monastery, you eat vegetarian, but in part of your monastic life is to beg for food. And if someone puts a piece of fish or chicken in your bowl, you eat it, because that gift is part of the transaction. And if you reject someone's gift of food, you're doing harm to that sentient creature who gave it to you. And the animal's already been killed. So the rationale there is, it's not to purify yourself. You're not being a pure person. That's a kind of Jainist approach that I don't think most of us would adopt. It's lightening your debt, lightening your presence on the planet. And that means with other humans as well. People do ask us when we were able to get together, do you have any vegetarian, do you have any food allergies or needs? And I'm glad people ask me and said, we tell people we are preferably vegetarian, but we will enjoy whatever you prepare. And we do enjoy it. I never stopped liking meat. It doesn't disgust me, but neither do I want it. So it really is that. Last year, when we could get together, our two sons and our daughter-in-law, we ate a Thanksgiving dinner that I found recipes that came out of indigenous cultures. The New York Times ran a review of a cookbook of modern recipes that came from indigenous tribes throughout the Americas. And there was a fabulous recipe, gloriously wonderful, for grilled salmon, for wild rice, for blackberry sauce, for squashes and corn. And I figured if maybe the way to be grateful is to be grateful for the land and the people who were here before us. And did I eat a lot of fish? No, maybe 3 ounces. It ain't going to kill me, and it's not going to kill the planet. And we ate it with respect for the animal and the people who harvested it the way they did generations ago. So yeah, you can do that. Be mindful, as the Buddhists would say. Choose the food that shows gratitude. One food you can have at Thanksgiving that probably you haven't thought about is rice. It is a global food that most people in Asia eat every day. Perhaps if you communed with those folks in some form, it would give you a reason to feel grateful for them. So think of foods that signify the cultures of the world, especially those that are less developed and less prosperous, and eat somewhere amongst the Asians or the Africans if you can. And that might be a way to invoke Thanksgiving in a genuine sense and not merely what grandma did. Although, honestly, if we didn't have the turkey, we had everything else, I would be fine.
Yeah.
I really would.
Bert, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Fred. I'm Bert.
Hi.
I have a question for you about your consumption of soy.
Yeah.
I have heard that the soy plants absorb more pesticides than anything else in the field because of the construction of the plant itself. It holds the pesticides in and they get processed into the food. Do you agree with that? Is that true? Or have you heard of that? Are you concerned at all with the soy that you eat?
Well, most of the soy we eat comes in the form of soy milk, and we get the organic variety that is sold by Costco. And if it's organic, we can be fairly sure that it is somewhat less in terms of extra chemicals. I don't know about the Nasoya folk who create the tofu. Does anyone know about their chemical use? Those are the two forms we use the most often. But Bert, I can't do it perfect, so I do better than I could. How about that?
Oh, I agree. Yes. That's what we
Yeah,
need.
I'm not trying to pass a test here, people, and neither are you.
Thank you.
There seems to be some noise in the background somewhere. I'm not sure before we go on. Is everybody? Okay. Anybody else have a question? Comment? Anything you want to share?
I would say one thing for Willa. If it's just me and my husband, which is not a lot more than one, and for cooking, if you have an Instant Pot, there's lots of bean recipes, and we have those glass jars they use for canning, and they freeze, and you can freeze it and then just take it out. The half pint size for one is just wonderful. And also we get big bags of those frozen mixed vegetable things from Costco. They're, they have a lot of cruciferous vegetables. And you can open it and then just take out a little, microwave it and use it that way, and it'll keep for a long time. So you can easily cook for one
Okay, thank
that
you.
way.
Those are great ideas. Thank you, Johnny.
I think a lot of times, in fact, a lot of what we talk about on these Fridays is making that transition and what do you eat? Now, a lot of people who are totally new to this are basically like, gee, what do you eat? How do you, what do you do? And I'll tell you, when I first started, it kind of scared me. I mean, I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't even know where to start. And then it becomes like this wonderful adventure, because you begin to see that there are some delicious foods out there that are, where you can eat vegetarian. And, now it got to the point basically where, and I said this at one of our meetings where, I open up the refrigerator, and when I pull something out, you become mindful of where that food has come from, what that food means, where, that is freeing unto itself. It's like, I don't want to eat this way anymore. I want to eat this way, and I'm willing to make a concession. And oh, by the way, this is kind of delicious, and I never realized it. I mean, people laugh at me. I say how tofu challenged I am all the time, and I was, but I have found some recipes that are really delicious, and that becomes part of this adventure. It's kind of fun. And knowing that you're really have a more gentle footprint, you're leaving, is on the planet itself, and you're being kind to animals, and all the rest of it is just an advantage. I think, it's just one more thing for me personally. Yeah. So.
I have a kind of a question. I'm wondering, Fred, how you feel about, do you feel that your vegetarianism is something that will be integrated into how you work with the congregation, or do you see it as something sort of as just, a preference you have, like the color car you drive or something like that?
That's a little political. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're coming back, I think. Yeah.
We're frozen there.
Like I said, my connection is a little flaky here at the church, in the office building. I never hesitated to tell people, and I always recommended it. And yet, when I suggested that church meals should be vegetarian, it was interesting how swift the blowback was. I wasn't asking them to become vegetarian, just that common meals should not include meat. I think the community should practice a non-carnivorous life when it meets together. And it's a little bit, well, I'm not a vegetarian. I said, if you eat cereal for breakfast, you're vegetarian for one meal. This is not asking you to be vegetarian. I'm just saying that when the community eats, it should reflect its commitment to valuing life forms. That's all. To being non-exploitative of land and being conscientious about nature. How hard can this be? But it was surprising how much resistance there was. So there's a lot of emotion that attaches to this, and decoupling the emotion that you're trying to change them. I said, no, I just think we shouldn't eat meat at church. Oh, you're trying to change things. No, I think we should not eat meat at church. Do not read an agenda larger than I'm suggesting. But it always happens. Sorry.
Yeah, we do both at our
Yes.
I don't know if am I on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are.
Yes, you
Yeah,
are.
we do both. And when people bring a dish to share, we're always asked to make a little tag that goes along with it to say if it's vegetarian or if it contains meat, or, you know, some other thing that might be highly offensive to people. But we have really good potlucks, and there probably are more vegetarians than not at UU. So
Well, I'm
that's what
hoping, I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay. I'm trying to
I
get
guess
my
what,
brain.
yeah,
All right.
I think I may be,
Yeah, your connection's kind of funny.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
try to leave and join you again.
Great.
I will do what Jerry did.
Okay. Great.
Mhm.
So Linda Stenholm, do you want to like tell us what you just wrote in there while we're waiting, or do you, what you wrote in the chat, or do you want me to just read it? Here he comes. Okay, he's back.
And I'm back.
Bye, Musette. Sorry, Musette has to leave. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Mhm. I guess if I had a hope for the long run, is that we think of meat eating as the exception rather than vegetarianism. Why do we think it's abnormal to be a non-carnivore? I just don't know.
Oops.
That's a really,
Marketing. I think it's the marketing that we've
Yep,
been taught.
That's the
Just
message.
the way we were raised too.
Yeah.
yep.
What
So
our family did:
yeah.
meat, potatoes, and a vegetable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
well, we also talked about, we talked about, this is kind of interesting, about the gender differences as you approach this kind of eating. You know, it's like all of a sudden this masculine meat eating, you know, thing that goes on with men, and, you know, and how to overcome that, you know, and, you know, we watched a movie, I forget the name of it. Linda, or you're going to remember it for me. It's like a, you know, it's about the athletes who did so well on a vegetarian or vegan diet. Remember that
Mhm.
movie that we watched, and they were all
Yeah.
like really strong guys that, you know, kind of promoted this kind of eating. But it's a real, I mean, look at the makeup of this group. You know, it's really kind of hard to engage the guys. Not sure why. But
Well, you're right. There is a kind of cultural reinforcement that if you eat meat, you've been a hunter and you're strong. And there's no question that animal flesh can be nutritious. It's just that we don't have to depend upon it as often as we do.
right.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't digest well either in our bodies as well as we would like it to very often.
Human
And it
beings can
stays
make,
in our blood vein, in our veins. It's the cholesterol. It's just, it doesn't want to leave.
True.
well, I'm not going to disagree with anyone. Let's look at the cultures that are healthier, and you'll discover they are very low on the food chain dependent.
Mm.
I was going to say, if you're like Tooele, look at cultures that are non-European and eat ethnic, whether it's Indian or Middle Eastern or East Asian or South American, and you'll discover they eat very little meat by comparison, and it's really flavorful. And it's no longer vegetarian, it's ethnic. How much fun is that?
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
My two sons are Vietnamese, and but they use the Vietnamese restaurants we have around here are Vietnamese American, and so you still see a lot of the chicken and that kind of thing in those, but they do have great different flavors and spices that I could see would be really good.
That they are good.
Yeah.
You have to be adventuresome, right?
Yep.
That's really true.
One of the great things about being a non-carnivore is you're also not risking food poisoning nearly as much.
Yeah,
True.
really true. It's real. And this book that we're reading that Diane referred to a little while ago is yeah. What's the name of Diane? The How to Survive.
How to survive a pandemic. And if you have a reason to quit eating chicken, this will give it to you.
There's a lot of-
I'll tell you, this factory farming of chickens where they cram millions, literally millions of chickens together in these Quonset hut things, and the diseases are rampant, and it just is disgusting. They talk about the chicken in the grocery store, and that 90% of it's got fecal matter attached to it. So, yeah, it's really, really bad. And that they have always recommended if you cut or cook with chicken, you have to wash everything really good, and it's so you don't cross-contaminate. Well, the reason the problem is because the way it's processed, and it isn't safe. It's full of E. coli and salmonella and all kinds of stuff. And so I look at chicken a whole different way than I did before.
And how they destroy the baby chicks, the male chicks, and then the ones that don't lay eggs anymore, they just grind them up. I don't know if they feed those back to I don't even know.
And they feed them back to the chicken for food, or the cow. It's a form of cannibalism, and it's so disgusting. Blech. There was one, I won't even tell you about. There was one section in the book where they're talking about what they fed the baby calves that they took away from their mothers, and I literally cried. It was so awful.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Well, it's just spoiler alert, but be warned, it's not pleasant. Yeah. But it's just the fact that our factory farming becomes this is a phenomenon that's come on since after the 50s, after the 60s. Right. And it's an experiment that's not working very well. And there are some countries that have banned it because it has become such a problem.
It should be remembered that I think it was Sinclair Lewis or Upton Sinclair who wrote The Jungle over a century ago about the conditions in the meatpacking industry then. And his point was not animal welfare, but worker welfare, because they were so harmed by the process. But industrial food production is essentially making something cheaper by rendering it less healthy.
It's very bad for our planet too.
Oh yeah.
All the processes just put more awful stuff into our air.
It's our new wet markets. I said that to my sister, and she's like, well, we're not eating exotic animals. I'm like, but we're cramming all these poor creatures together and creating these H5N1 and the chicken processing, in this How to Survive a Pandemic book. And who knows, who knew there were all these combinations of the H and the N? And I know that book gets a little bogged down in the details, but who knows what's going to develop in those close quarters. So
well, that's it. We've had one pandemic, and we certainly don't want another one or a worse one. But the probability of a worse one is really furthered by the kind of ways that we're raising animals today. I think Obama had a plan. I don't know how great it was, but it was certainly shelved. So I think we need to do something about this as a country, and probably as international agreements, because this kind of wealthy farming that we do is everywhere around the globe now.
And wasn't Cory Booker putting in legislation regarding something about, I know Cory Booker's a vegetarian, but he had some legislation regarding, you know, the concentrated animal farming operations and the way chickens are raised, and implementing the free range chickens. Like California is going to go 100% whenever. I don't remember the details.
Yeah, I don't know any
But he's not
details
for
on
that.
that, but I think I
Yeah.
heard that too. It sounded excellent.
Yeah.
I think
curious-
it'll get struck down, you know, most of that legislation. I'm glad that people are introducing it because it helps people to become mindful. But the lobbies are so strong that, you know, it often,
Exactly. The fourth branch of government, lobby.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wanted to say that, you know, not only the chicken themselves, but the eggs can carry disease. Back when I first became vegetarian, part of my being veganish is that I would have one egg per month. And on one of those occasions, we went to a restaurant, I had my single egg. And then I was sick at home, as sick as I've ever been for 4 days. And then I was hospitalized for another 4 days. And I literally thought I was going to die from something called Campylobacter that's associated with poultry. And, you know, it's just, we don't hear about it that much because it doesn't happen that much, I suppose. But, you know, there are a lot of, like, the wet market thing is not, you know, that's not a stretch to call these places wet markets, because that's really what they are. So anyway.
Linda and Diane, talking about the eggs, that's one of the things that I'm curious about, because I can see me giving up chicken. But giving up eggs is going to be hard. I don't eat a lot of them, but I do like to fix eggs occasionally for breakfast. Do we know if there's a way to get, I mean, are the free range eggs going to have less opportunity to be tainted with some of this stuff, or, you know, is there just no way to find fairly healthy eggs?
Free range can sometimes be sort of a misnomer, because sometimes what they mean by free range is instead of having them crammed, you know, 8 or whatever into their little cages, they're free range by 1,000 of them wandering around together in something that is a larger container for them. And in some cases, it can be worse for them because they don't have the opportunity to kind of build their social hierarchy. So they're fighting with each other, they're killing each other, they're pottying everywhere together. So free range, I don't know. I mean, there are all different kinds of designations that the poultry industry can give, but, you know, when you kind of start reading about it, and some of the things that I don't remember, it was one of the films we watched or something that we read, a lot of those things are sort of a way around that industry still doing
Marketing.
something, you know, because it makes us feel
Yeah, it's a way of marketing.
but didn't they have like a 10 by 10 foot patch of grass, and then they had that giant enclosed like auditorium or whatever, like sized, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but all the thousands of chickens were in there. And because they had that 10 by 10 square patch of grass with the tiny little door that they could go out to it, and they wouldn't even go out to it and use it, but they could call that free range.
free range. So
I think you have to be like a rocket scientist to be able to read an egg carton now. You know, I mean, I go there, it's so confusing. It really is.
Yeah.
But there are. Well, I love eggs. I mean, I was, you know, an egg eater, big time egg eater, and I still love them. But there are really good substitutes. And what you find is that, I think, Eileen, I think you recommended at one point just egg. And
Yes,
very,
Fry's has it, just egg.
right,
Yeah.
just egg. They're not eggs. They taste just like eggs. Like, I make them as scrambled eggs, and it works just fine. You know, so, you know, you're not going to get a hard-boiled egg, but you might get a scrambled egg.
Yeah.
What about these organic eggs? That at least eliminates some of the chemicals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think Jeanette put a phone number for a local grower, and I'm just lucky, you know, I know a friend who raises chickens, and so yeah. So it's just being mindful.
That's good. Yeah.
I'd like to be kind toward Willa and others and say, move a step in the right direction and then take a second step. If you try to go from everything to nothing, you'll be disappointed in yourself. And if you notice, the demand for better food is beginning to penetrate the mass market, because you see options in supermarkets we didn't see 10 years ago. That reflects increased demand. So the more often we as consumers look for things that we want to be more humanely raised, without harm, all that stuff, build the market for it, and it diminishes, it gives, it encourages those people who can do it to do it. Yeah, I mean, I've not complained, I've said, gee, what happened to your blah, blah, blah? I was really looking forward to that. And they give this look like, well, you know, some of us really like to buy food that is in this form. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, it was back. The market does respond, but you have to take part in it enough to demand of it. And so move in the right direction. No, and there are, if you look carefully, in some supermarkets, at least, you'll get a range of cheap eggs. And if you're a poor person, I can't begrudge you if you eat those things. I really can't. But if you can afford the high price spread, buy it. And eat fewer, and eat a wider variety of foods in general. The wider your diet is overall, the less of any one thing you will be dependent upon. We eat lentils, beans, quinoa, brown rice, noodles of all kinds. We eat sweet potatoes. We eat this vegetable and that vegetable, so that we're not really depending on any one thing, either for protein or for carbs or for fats. I'm afraid the one thing we probably eat a lot of is olive oil. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you get it from a responsible and respectable agency. But olive oil solves a lot of problems. It really does.
That's a great approach. It really is a great approach. Yeah. Go slow.
How do you know which brands of olive oil are the responsible ones, Fred?
You have to look carefully, but our friends at Costco do a pretty good job. And Consumer Reports will report from time to time on origins and quality, and they tend to be in a pretty good place.
I had no idea olive oil had not so good sources. Where have I been? What is the problem with olive oil?
Well, it's not so much the problem, but you can get it from a variety of locations, some of which are produced more transparently than others. How about that?
Okay. And then what's the ones that, like, what is the problem with the other ones? I'm sorry.
They are often adulterated with other oils, so you have the taste, but they contain canola or corn or coconut or something else the same. So you need to make sure when it says extra virgin, they're not just talking about a nice little girl that lives next door.
Oh, okay. Well, I would hate if they put palm oil, because, you know, then you got the slash and burn deforestation.
Yes, exactly.
Deforestation.
So
yeah.
It's not so much that olive oil itself can be bad. It's that it is sometimes cut to make it less expensive.
Got it. Okay.
So can I assume extra virgin olive oil is okay?
Some are really genuinely good, and some are a little less reputable. If you subscribe to Consumer Reports, read their analysis. They're very good about talking about sourcing.
I've heard that you should not cook anything at high temperatures with olive oil, because it can then become a carcinogen. I don't know how true that is, but I keep canola oil, you know, for if I want to fry something.
Yeah, we keep a variety of oils around. Sesame oil is particularly good when you're cooking Asian. Yeah.
Jeanette put avocado oil in the comments at Costco.
Yep.
That can be at a higher temperature.
Yep.
And I think
I just wanted to share that the new issue, I'm on green screen. The new issue of Forks Over Knives is out, and it's the fall issue with lots of fabulous recipes in it. Soups and stews is a big section in here, and I'm anxious to try a couple of them. One of them was a lentil stew, and I think it's made in a what do you call it? Not a crock pot, but the cooker?
Slow cooker.
Instapot? Or
The Instapot. And I don't have an Instapot, but this may
convince me to go get one.
Oh, they're
There's
really,
also,
man, they're wonderful. I have
yeah,
one.
well, for doing beans and lentils and all that, I would think it would be particularly good.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to know, the pictures are beautiful too. I love just, this cookbook, this magazine only comes out 4 times a year. So I happened to see one when I was at the grocery store this last week, but there's one in here on sweet potato hash, and it just looks
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
It's great.
Oh,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
No crack.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I highly
That's
recommend it if you haven't. I got this at Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's had it. So I was in there looking at their stuff that they had that was vegetarian or vegan or meat substitutes or whatever. Found a couple things to try. Lots of fun.
Yeah.
There is an adjacent point of view that's worth adding, and that's the slow food movement, which is to say, taking the time to cook something yourself and not cutting corners.
Yeah.
We eat a lot of beans, so sometimes something starts 24 hours in advance.
Mhm.
And I said, I make my own bread, and it is sourdough. And I was doing it for 2 years, not just because of the pandemic. And one of the things you learn when you work with foods is you go at their speed, not at yours. When it's not processed, you cook a bean as long as it takes to cook a bean. And that means it's part of the decision making. The yeast always is in charge of the bread. You can't make it do what it doesn't want to do. And the time you want it. So in some respects, letting the food tell you how it wants to be cooked is a great lesson in humility, which is also a good thing from a spiritual point of view. Fruit, we grow a little bit of vegetables in our backyard because we can. We're not devoted because we don't want a bumper crop to have to can. We don't throw any fertilizer on it. Some compost from our own yard. We don't add chemicals, and we don't get much. It depends on what grows that year. And half the time the rabbits eat about 1/3 of it. We figure, fine, they were here before us anyway. And so
You share.
so we eat some lima beans, and we get some lettuce, and we get some tomatoes. And it's not like we need it, but it reminds us of the relationship to the plant itself, its own schedule, its own time. And it means that we're more connected to the food we eat before it becomes food. It is life. And we find that nourishing in itself. Now, you may not be able to do that here in Arizona. I don't know what your growing system is like. Your produce aisle tells me it's expensive around here to grow your own vegetables. And yet, you can do some of it. And even if it fails, you've watched it grow and fail. And that's worth the experience.
Anybody need any jalapenos? I got too many.
There you go.
I'd like to slice just a tiny bit into like some ramen noodles. I don't need 10, I think, out there, but at least I got a compost bin now.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
I just saw a recipe to put those on grilled cheese sandwiches with vegan cream cheese.
Ooh.
Cheese. Yeah, so that's your imagination going. Well, so thank you so much, Reverend Wooden, for joining us. We're going to hold you to a couple of recipes. Okay, send them across. I'll distribute them to everybody. But thank you all. Thank you so much for joining us. This was just wonderful.
Good fun, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay.
Yep, great perspective. Yeah, we're not going to go to hell if we don't do a perfect vegan diet.
Yeah. We Unitarian Universalists are still Puritans at heart. We have to get over that.
Yeah.
It's not good for us.
Right.
Hey, I thought I was getting rid of the guilt when I left the Catholic Church. Come
No,
on
now
now.
see, now you have to be politically perfect and financially perfect. No, we're not going to be perfect. Be better. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Great perspective. Thank you so much.
You take care. I'm going to find my way out. You be well, everyone.
I'm waiting
We'll
for
see
those
you soon.
recipes.
Thanks, Fred.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
There's Jerry.
Are we ending our meeting, Denise?
Well, if you want to stay on and talk for a little while, we have some time, or we can cancel, whatever you'd like to do.
Oh, it is 11. I didn't see the time right now. I didn't realize it's 11 already.
Yeah.
Anybody want to talk
You guys
tofu?
figured out that part?
Anybody want to talk tofu? I have rarely tried it. And I'm wondering, because I love bacon, but I haven't had a piece of bacon in a year probably.
There's substitutes. There's
is it
vegan
good?
substitutes.
Is it worth
Are
your
there?
money to buy
It's-
tofu?
I haven't found a good one, but there's some
Flavored
tasty
bacon.
ones. You fry the vegan
bacon.
slices in the vegan bacon in the pan, and they're a bit crispier, and you can overcook them easily.
Oh, vegan
But
bacon.
they
There's
have
like,
good.
I've tried some recipes and none of them have worked well, that are like kind of like tofu oriented or use something else to, eggplant. I tried an eggplant one. Oh, this is going to taste like bacon, and it didn't. So are you, Eileen, referring to the ones like you buy in Sprouts and they actually, it looks like vegan bacon?
Yeah, it actually looks like bacon, or even it looks like turkey bacon. It's like flat pieces, and then you just fry it in the pan.
Yeah.
It's so weird looking when it's cooking because it actually looks fatty or something, but it crisps up super fast. But the texture is crunchy and the flavor is good. I think maybe in the years to come they'll come up with better substitutes to mimic it. But I think we also need to think about, I don't know, what is a substitute for bacon? Can anyone think of what would satisfy like bacon?
I don't know. Haven't found anything.
I know.
It's the smell of
Yeah.
bacon, I guess.
Yeah.
The smell
Yeah.
so good when you make bacon.
I like the Morningstar sausages.
You know what, speaking of Costco, one thing I really miss, they used to have these wonderful black bean burgers, not the ones they've got now, the Chipotle are not good.
Oh, Morningstar at Fry's has the black bean burgers,
You know
and they're
what,
not.
I think
you know what the protein count is on them?
I've tried it.
I might have some in my freezer. Hang on, let me go look.
It's high. I've tried a couple of them, but I can't get used to the flavor. It's just
Yeah.
not really great. Have you found some that have good flavor,
Well, the
Sandy?
ones that Costco used to have were kind of spicy. You have a lot of veggies in them, black beans, peppers. They were just so good. And now they've got a brand that is less protein per patty, and they're blah.
Have you
No.
tried to talk to them about it and see if they can order it in again?
I have. I keep putting suggestions in their
Yeah.
book.
So this is a spicy black bean. It's 9 grams per patty of protein.
The ones that Costco had were
And
like,
that's good. Morningstar.
How many? It had what, Sam? 16 per patty?
something like
Wow.
that. It was high.
Here's I like the garden veggie one. It's got 11 grams. I like that one.
Are they spicy at all?
The garden veggie is not. The girls like the spicy black bean. I'm not a fan. And then I like the garden veggie. And there's like there's like a bunch of different, they have other burger recipe flavors. So at Fry's, I put them back in the freezer.
Anytime you don't have to make them yourself, pull them out of a pack and throw them in a pan.
Well, they were a staple of my diet. I'd have it like at least once a week, and then they quit carrying it, as Costco does. Sometimes they just quit carrying things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They're not selling probably, huh?
I have to run, everybody. Good to see
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm going to take
Bye.
off.
Gotta
Bye.
go.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Great,
Great.
thank you. Thank
Great
you.
to talk to you all. Stay well. Wear your masks.
You too.